Hey everyone, this is Bill Krieger from the Veterans Archives podcast, where we preserve and share the incredible stories of our nation's heroes. Catch us every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Wreaths Across America Radio, or stream anytime on Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Really, anywhere you choose to get your podcast, you should be able to find us. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on social media to help us reach more veterans and supporters. We are a nonprofit, and this service is completely free for veterans. Every story matters, and every voice deserves to be heard. Spread the word, honor our heroes, and join us on this mission. Follow, share, and tune in, because their story should never be forgotten. Learn more at veteransarchives.org. We'll see you there. Today is Wednesday, May 28th, 2025. We're here with Andy Usborne, who served the United States Navy. Good morning, Andy.
Hey, how you doing?
Great to have you here today. So first question, pretty simple. When and where were you born?
I was born in Oneida, New York, April 10th, 1958.
All right. And did you grow up there?
Yep. Actually, I was born in Oneida City Hospital, and my parents were living in Sherrill, New York, the smallest city in the state, incorporated city, I guess. And shortly after I was born, we moved into a house that my mom and dad they built out on some land that my grandfather owned.
And when people talk about New York, they don't think about rural New York, and this is what this is, right?
No, yeah, very rural, surrounded by dairy farms.
Okay. Well, now, did you have brothers and sisters?
I have 5 brothers, no sisters.
Oh, good Lord, your parents were busy.
Yes, they were. I was just talking to someone about this last night, and some of our family reunions, just our immediate family, we start talking and reminiscing about things that went on when we grew up. And sometimes my mom has to leave the table because she doesn't want to hear it.
we joke about that at the holidays, right? We tell the stories that mom never heard.
Yeah, right. She doesn't want to hear them either.
No. So where'd you fall in the food chain on all that?
So I was number 5 of 6. So I had all my older brothers to teach me what I wasn't going to do. Uh-huh. Not that I did things, I did other stuff, but I always told myself, I'm not going to do it that way.
Right? Yeah, you watch the result and decide that's not what you're going to do.
Yeah, right. I'll do it differently.
Yeah. Well, so I got to ask, did you live up to the baby of the family kind of thing?
For a while, until my younger brother was born. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was born in 64, I think it was 63.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And that just kind of blew it all out of the water for you, right?
Yeah.
Well, good. So what was it? So tell me a little bit, what was it like growing up with all those brothers?
Well, I'll tell you what, I have to feel that my upbringing was a unique situation because we lived on land that my grandfather owned, who lived like 2 houses down.
Uh-huh.
My next door neighbors were my aunt and uncle and cousins, and a few houses down was my other aunt and uncle and cousins. And down further on some of the farms, they were relatives by marriage, kind of removed. So it was like almost all family. At one point, we all went to the same high school. At one point, I think we all played football, and like half the team was related. It wasn't that small of a town or anything, but still, it was just that's the way it worked out. It
sounds like your family was a force to be reckoned with.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun. Everybody knew us, just because of that. My grandfather, was my mom's dad, came over from Italy in 1910, I think it was 1909. He was a farmer, so he grew a lot of crops and everything, and strawberries was his thing. Mm-hmm. So we had a huge strawberry farm. Well, one of my earliest recollections is picking strawberries during the summer, all summer long, for they'd sell them at market and stuff like that. So
you can get hot there too, can it?
Oh yes, yeah, very hot.
Yeah, I'll bet. Well, it sounds like family was very important to you. Can you tell me a little bit about your parents and what they did and
Sure.
how that was?
Yeah, so like I said, my mom grew up 2 doors down. So Italian family. My grandfather, like I said, came over in 1909, worked for a while, then went back to Italy. And as the story goes how my mom tells it. He went to his little town in Italy and said, "Hey, I'm going back to America. Who wants to go?" He didn't have anybody picked out. My grandmother said, "I'll go." And that's the way it worked out.
A great marriage proposal.
Oh, yeah, I guess. She always said later on that she wishes there was a bridge from, America to Italy. But so I was fortunate to at one point go back to Ellis Island and get all the records from my grandfather coming over. So I have the picture of the ship they came over on, and the manifest with his name on it and all that stuff. So it was pretty interesting. But yeah, so growing up with my family all around us was it was unique, I think. And most of us were all boys. I think I had one. Yeah, my cousin Denise. Yeah.
Huh. Poor Denise.
Oh yeah, I know.
No one to play with. No.
Well, it was interesting because going through high school and everything, she knew how to handle guys. So she knows what makes them tick. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of school, talk to me a little bit about what was it like going to school for you?
Yeah. So I went to Vernon Verona Sherrill Central High School, and as the name says, it's made up of 3 different communities. Vernon was a horse racing community. There's a harness racing there, so a lot of horse people. Mm-hmm. Verona was predominantly dairy farmers, so a lot of dairy folks, and then Sherrill was the city. So Sherrill is noted for making Oneida community silverware. So if you get any flatware, and all that stuff, it was one of the major producers of flatware and silverware in the United States at the time. So, and both my parents worked there. A lot of my brothers worked there. Mm-hmm. I never had the pleasure. So,
well, it's funny you say that because you said Oneida, and I'm like, why is this in the back of my head? I remember like on the old Price is Right show, that would be like one of the gifts, and they would talk all about it.
Yeah,
I never realized that's where it came from.
Yeah, that's it. So so high school was an amalgamation of a lot of different folks from different backgrounds and experiences. It was a great school, and we had some great teachers. Everybody played sports and did whatever, and so it was a lot of fun. I played football, wrestled a little bit, did track a little bit, and
yeah. What about like actual school? How was that for you?
I think my graduating class was 265, and honestly, I think I was like 110. I was your average student, as average as you can be, top of the bell curve.
Right smack in the middle.
Yeah.
Wow. So you go to high school, you graduate. What happens next?
So a friend of mine, Dan Althouse, I've known him since kindergarten. There are 3 or 4 folks that I've kept in touch with, literally known since kindergarten. And we've kind of followed each other throughout our lives and everything. But yeah, it was an interesting time, Mm-hmm. It was right after Vietnam. So my friend Dan and I said, well, he didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to go to school. We kind of want to see the world. So we decided, let's join the Navy. So in November of 75, we both enlisted together on the delayed enlistment, went in, literally reported to boot camp 2 days after I graduated. And that was 76. I think that's my only regret in life is like, I should have stayed around for the bicentennial because I spent that in boot camp.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, I was 11 years old during the bicentennial. It was quite a...
I missed the big party.
Yeah, you did. Well, you're at another party of sorts,
yeah,
right?
I guess.
Yeah. And so did you go in on the buddy program then?
Yeah, we did. Okay. Yeah, we went through boot camp together, and he decided he wanted to sail in those little black tubes. So he went subs, and I said, no, I got to get up and see the sky.
Takes a special person to be on a submarine.
Oh, yes. And he is a special person.
That's amazing, though, having a friendship that's lasted that long, I have friendships from like high school and maybe like junior high, but I don't really know anybody from my grade school anymore.
Yeah. There's several of us that we graduated all together and went through all of school and life, Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you a question, too. So my dad worked in the automotive industry here in Michigan, And one of the things that drove me to join the military when I did was that, his job put a roof over our head, fed us, all that stuff. But I saw how it impacted him, and so I told myself I'm never going to do that kind of work. Was that part of what drove you?
Yeah, I think so because, like I said, many people in my family and extended family worked at Coronado Limited. Great company, really treated its employees well. But it's like, that's the only game in town, really, and I really, really had that itch to get out there. And I did not want to spend another 2 or 4 years in school waiting for that to happen. I had to get out, get on with it. And the Navy was my choice. They had a rating that really suited me well. Interior communications. It was a lot of anything that's communications on board the ship, not external. So closed circuit TV was my thing. I said, "Hey, let's do that," and so that's what I got into.
Yeah, and at some point that turned. I don't know how they did it, like in the 70s, because I don't think videotape was much of a thing. But like I remember, they had the closed circuit television. They would pop in, VHS tapes that got flown out to the ship, and that's what we would watch.
Right. So, yeah, I went through that training. That was my C school for my first year, was all training, right? Go to the A school and then C school. And for the needs of the Navy, they sent me to a ship that didn't even have it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. I want to back up just a little bit. And that is, what was like your first impression? First of all, where did you go to basic training?
Great Lakes.
Oh, awesome. All right. So tell me, like when you got off the train or got off the bus, what was your first impression of being there?
So one of my older brothers, Jim, he was in the Navy, went to Great Lakes. So he kind of laid it all out for me. I kind of knew what I was getting into. It was not a surprise. My dad was really deep into the American Legion, and they had started a Sons of the American Legion outfit there, unit. And I was the first commander. So at the tender age of 17, I was leading a group of people already, so it wasn't really surprising for me.
Oh, so this was just something you needed to go through, then?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was exactly. You put it correctly. It's just that's what you got to do. So,
and also I want to back up too, because you said you guys joined the Navy and saw the world, and that was actually like their recruiting poster, right? Join the Navy, see the world.
Absolutely,
and it's not a lie. You really do.
I did. I was very fortunate.
Yeah,
I look back on it, and I think had I gone to and followed through with the closed circuit TV program, I would have ended up on an aircraft carrier. That's where we go. I look back on it. I count my blessings, because it really was. I got into the amphibious Navy. I got on an LKA, which is essentially just a big, huge cargo ship. We carried the Marines and all their stuff and took them wherever they needed to go. But because it was big, I got to take my little 10-speed bike with me wherever we went as well. So port calls and everything, and knock back a few beers the first day. And if I could get off on land a second day, then I'd take my bike and go cycling. And I saw a lot of things many people didn't. A lot of great people too.
Different perspective from the seat of a bike, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What was it like getting to that ship for the first time?
A lot bigger than I thought it was. I had my older brother, Jim, was on an old DD from the Korean War era. And they said, yeah, stand by for heavy rolls, Right. And my dad was on an LST, so another kind of small ship, flat bottom and everything. So, yeah, coming to the Mobile was, I was surprised how big it was.
Yeah. Now, did you do your A school and your C school at Great Lakes?
No, C school was in San Diego. So I went Great Lakes boot camp, out to San Diego, back to Great Lakes for C school, and then back to San Diego for the ship.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how long were you on this particular ship?
So probably about 4 years, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, from June 1977 till November 1981. Yeah.
All right. And what ship was it?
Mobile, LKA 115.
Okay. After Mobile, Alabama?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about your time on that ship. And I think it's interesting that you took your bike and you did something that a lot of people didn't do. And so let's talk about that. It sounds really interesting.
Well, like I said, first reporting to the ship, Mobile has a unique history. The keel was laid down in 68, height of the Vietnam War, right? So one of the main operations it was tasked with was the evacuation of Vietnam. That's before I got to the ship. It was Operation Frequent Wind. But a lot of the folks that were on the ship when I first reported were part of that operation. And so they talked a lot about that. It was a different crew for sure. But it was also a different time. So after the war ended, things got kind of lackadaisical on the ship, and I guess in the Navy in general. Mobile was a difficult ship at that time because they, like I said, the crew was just done with it, you know. Other ships on the pier used to take bets to see if Mobile would make it under the Coronado Bay Bridge under its own power, because apparently there was a lot of times it didn't. They'd have to tow it back. And, yeah. So it's like, oh man, what am I getting into? But at that time, I reported in with a bunch of other folks that, you know, this is our ship, you know, we're going to take care of it. So within the span of a year, really, we turned that ship around. Myself and a whole bunch of other great folks had a can-do attitude, and we took care of it. And that ship became the flagship for the squadron. You know, during our refresher training and, you know, all the training we have to go through in order to deploy, we got every single battle E you can get, you know, all the engineering, gunnery, deck, seamanship, communications, the whole 9 yards. So we did a clean sweep, and it was really turned that ship around.
So did you see the culture of the ship change? Like I always think of the Detroit Lions when I think about this, right?
Yeah.
Once you got the stink of loss off of you, like there's this whole different level that happens, and it changes everybody that's part of that organization.
Oh, right. Absolutely. From every man down. It was like, you take pride in yourself, you take pride in your ship, you take pride in the Navy. You know, that's exactly the way it was. And really, people really excelled. And I mean, when you have that E on your stack and, you know, all the rest of that stuff, it's like, yeah, that's Mobile.
It means something. It really
does.
Yeah, I agree. I was on a destroyer, Kuntz class destroyer. But yes, we earned the Battle E, and it was I didn't understand what the big deal was, but as I developed in my time in the military, I completely understood how important that was. And you could see a change in the group when they started achieving things.
Right. Yeah.
So where did you go on your first deployment then?
So the first deployment, of course, we hit Hawaii, and that's where we pick up our Marines at. And then Okinawa, I think Japan after that, down to Korea, down to Singapore. I think on the way to Singapore, just after that, we crossed the equator. So started out as a polywag and became a shellback then in 78. And then floating around in the middle out there, you know, South China Sea and all that.
So did you get to pedal around a lot of the places that you went to at that time?
Then? Yeah. Interesting note. I think the first time in Singapore, I got out on the bike and went out of the city proper, and was just going down it was a fairly major road for that time, I guess. And there weren't a lot, you know, cities or anything, a lot of little villages and stuff. So I pulled off at a roadside stand, I guess it would be, try to get something to drink and eat. And people came up. Everybody speaks English, you know. So I was like, you know, you're by yourself? I said, yeah. Well, you know, there's still tigers out here. What do you mean? Yeah, like, you know, I don't know, Bengal tigers or something. It's, you know, Malaysia,
right?
You know. Well, I haven't seen any, and hopefully I can ride faster than they can run.
You don't want to be a snack for them.
Yeah, right. So I don't know if they're saying that to scare me away or whatever, but
oh yeah. So was that a 6-month deployment then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you come back. Now you were in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you come back. Interesting thing about San Diego too. I took my daughter to California for her senior trip, and I wanted to show her where I went to basic training. Only it's not there anymore.
Yeah,
it's a big subdivision in a shopping mall.
yeah, right.
So all that stuff's gone.
Yep.
But,
crazy.
Yeah. So was that the only ship that you were on, or were you on other ships?
So during my active enlistment, that was the only ship I was on. I got out and kind of missed it after a while, so I took a year and went in the reserves, and I was on the George Phillip FFG-13.
Okay. And where was that out of?
That was out of Long Beach.
Oh, okay. All right. So when you got out after your first enlistment, then did you stay in California?
I did. I just told this story the other day. The Mobile had a reunion. I couldn't make it, but we were talking about that online. And literally, probably about 6 months before my enlistment ended, the ship was reserves at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And in Long Beach, part of the reserve component that was attached to Mobile, some of the guys worked at the shipyard right there, Long Beach Naval Shipyard. And I got to talking to some of these guys, and said, you should go over and apply for a job. They're looking for people. So about 6 months before I was discharged, I literally walked over to the employment office, filled out the application, and sent it in, and got a reply back. Yeah, they want to talk to you. So, okay, go over there and interview with the folks. When's your last day? I told them I think it was like November 23rd. Well, take a week off and you can report in. So I did. I literally took all my stuff, got an apartment in town, and started working at the Naval Shipyard as an electronics measurement equipment mechanic.
Uh-huh. Well, and I'm sure that the training you got is interior communications.
Absolutely. Everything I was doing while I served, I did at the shipyard.
Right. And so I talk to a lot of people who get out and then go to work in a similar job. And there's a big difference in pay.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think that
it was fun.
Yeah, I'll bet. So you did that for a year, but you kind of missed that.
I did. It was, I was fortunate in that I've sailed on a lot of different ships, doing sea trials and everything. Every time I worked on a ship, I wanted to go on the sea trial on it. So, but it was like, I miss putting on that uniform. So I did that for a year, and that was enough,
Well, I think some people don't know this, that when a ship gets either refitted or is a new ship, there's a ton of civilians that go out for quite a while with that ship. In fact, I remember we had a civilian that went on our 6-month deployment with us, because they do take a lot of ownership in what they do, and it sounds like that's what you did as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And you worked on everything from what, frigates all the way up?
Oh yeah, the biggest ship was probably LHA, the Peleliu, Tarawa, Villawood. Yeah.
Wow, all familiar names actually. That's funny. Yeah. So, what was it like going back in, kind of in the reserve capacity?
It was different. Again, during the time I was in, we had those funky uniforms that were more like a chief's uniform, with the combination cap and all that stuff. And I said, man, this is just not the Navy I was thinking of. I wanted those something, the Cracker Jack uniform.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I went back in for the reserves. I wanted that uniform. Honestly,
I think I still have mine somewhere around here.
Yeah,
it doesn't fit anymore.
Likewise.
Yeah, it's too bad. So you ended up on you said a frigate?
Yeah, fast frigate. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the work I was doing in the shipyard had to do with a lot of propulsion controls. That's what I did at the Mobile. As I said, the ship didn't have closed circuit TV, but it did have automated propulsion system.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. You could be up on the bridge, dial in. I want to go, 15 knots, let's say, dial that in, and the propulsion plant would automatically come up to speed, supposedly. That system never worked, okay? But a lot of the ancillary controls that would help it work did. And so that's what I took care of. We had one main propulsion space with boiler and all the turbo generators, reduction gear, and all that. So instead of having a boiler room, engine room, it was all one space. So I worked on all that stuff with BTs and MMs and engine men and all that stuff. So yeah.
Well, and I think when people hear communications in a job, they don't realize it's communications between systems too, not
absolutely.
Just the one MC or the telephone system.
Right.
Or whatever.
Absolutely. I didn't hardly ever touch those systems. The gyro, I stood gyro watch, but after I got certified with that, because I worked with the diesel engines as well, the diesel generators and all that equipment. So I got generator certified as well on the diesel. So it's like, I did more of that stuff than I did actual, typical IC work.
Right. Right. Well, and so at the time you were in was like the surface warfare.
Yeah, they just started that before I got out. So I was going to qualify for that, but I took the IC1 test, E6 test, passed it. They delayed the promotions 6 months, I think it was. And I got the offer from the shipyard and it's like, I'm walking.
yeah. I don't blame you. So how long did you serve in the reserves?
A year.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't realize they had you could just do it for a year, and if you liked it, you stayed.
Well, yeah, they kind of frowned upon it, but well,
yeah. What are you going to do?
Yeah, that ship was just turned over to the reserves at that time.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that's one of the first things I did was the actual transfer ceremony and all that.
Okay.
So,
yeah. And so did you stay? How long did you stay at the shipyard then?
8 years. Yeah.
Okay. And so what happened?
Well, it was kind of sad because that shipyard was really a high performing place. We were one of my highlights at the shipyard when Reagan brought back those battleships.
Mm-hmm.
I worked on Missouri and New Jersey, both of those. I went on all the sea trials on both of those ships. And you have not lived until you did a full broadside with those 16-inch guns. It is phenomenal. But that was during Reagan's time, and Clinton followed, and he said, nah, we don't really need that. So they closed the base and the shipyard down.
Yeah. Yeah, there was quite a reduction in force at that time.
Yeah.
In fact, when I got out of the Navy, I actually got out early because of the reduction in force in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the shipyard, what happens after the shipyard closes? Where do you go from there?
So I actually, my wife and I decided, me being from Central New York, and we have kids now, and living in Long Beach, LA, not the choice place to raise kids. So we moved back to where I grew up.
All right. Before we get there, you got married somewhere along the way.
Yeah. I met this woman right before I got out of the service. And that's an interesting story because I never intended to get married. I was riding my bike. My intention was to ride cross country. I had the on my bike. I was going to follow the Bicentennial Trail, which is a well planned out route. A lot of people do it. I had hooked up with some other cycling friends that, let's do it. We got all the gear together and everything else. I'm about to go on this trek, and my mom and dad said, look, you got a government job. You better keep that job because there's nothing.
Yeah.
Oneida Limited was on its way out. There was an Air Force base, Griffiths Air Force Base in Rome, New York. That was closing. There's nothing for you here. What are you going to do?
Let's take a quick break.
Hey, listeners, we need your help to keep the Veterans Archives podcast going. We're a nonprofit dedicated to preserving the stories of our nation's heroes, and we provide this service completely free to veterans. Your support helps us record, share, and archive these incredible stories so future generations never forget the sacrifices made for our freedom. Every donation, big or small, makes a difference. Visit veteransarchives.org to contribute today. Help us honor their service by ensuring their voices are heard. And thank you for your support, and thank you to all the veterans who have served our country.
Well, I guess I'll keep the government job. So just before I got out, I met my wife, and she was just getting out of a divorce. She did not want to get tied down again. She had a couple of kids, And yeah, we were both. It was very funny because we had met at a barbecue, and we, small talk and everything. Quite honestly, there was no physical attraction there.
No spark, huh?
She just got through having a baby, and you know how that goes. Women, it's like they're not in their prime.
Right.
But her personality intrigued me. She was really a nice person. So we met at another barbecue and got to know each other. And then my buddy and I, Doug was a BT, and we were getting out at the same time. And so we said, let's throw a party up in the hills above LA. So that turned into a division party. And so the ship kind of kicked in, ham and bread and kind of that kind of stuff. And we just provided tons of alcohol, and so we went up in the hills, not so we wouldn't get in any trouble.
Yeah.
And just tore loose. And my wife and I got to know each other over a bonfire, got to talking and everything. And I told her, well, where do you live? And she told me. I said, well, I'll stop by. So it was like a couple of days later, stopped by to her apartment and got to know each other after a while, and decided, yeah, that's what we ought to do. We lived together for a year and got married after that.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, and it's funny that, so how long have you been married now?
43 years.
Okay. So I don't know if you've noticed this, like sometimes, like, especially in the military, like when you meet somebody in the military, immediately you'll like strike up this friendship. It usually doesn't last that long. Like you get to know them and you're like, oh boy. But then there's always that person, like you just can't stand each other or whatever. And then all of a sudden, you guys are best friends and you're friends forever. And I think sometimes that's the same in a relationship.
Yeah. It's interesting because I was married before, obviously she was married before. And the woman I first married, I knew from high school.
Mm-hmm.
We went to actually rival schools, but yeah, so I knew her for like a year and a half, 2 years, and we decided to get married. When I came out to San Diego, she would have none of it. That marriage lasted 58 days.
Oh my gosh.
We got it annulled, and it's like, yeah, I think we're better friends.
Starter marriage.
Yeah, really.
Wow, 58 days. There's got to be some kind of record.
I don't know about that, but still, it was like, yeah, we both realized this is not the right thing. So,
so your wife had 2 children before you got married. And then did you have children?
Yeah, we had one between us. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then nuclear family, what is it?
Yeah.
3.5 kids or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you, so you were married just as you were getting out.
I met her just before I got out.
Just before you got out.
We got married a year after.
Okay. All right. So you're working at the shipyard at this time and in the reserves, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Okay. And then, so the shipyard closes and, so what happens now? So we've got kind of the backstory of how you got married. She kind of just threw that in there. I'm like, wait a minute. So you're married, your place of employment's closing, and now what?
Yeah. So, the Department of Defense had an outplacement service and all that kind of stuff. Like, oh, you could go work for the FAA. They gave me a position, or they offered a position with the FAA out in Oklahoma City. And I said, nah, I'm not going to take that one. There was one out at Edwards, and in hindsight, I probably should have taken that one because I probably could have made the rest of my government career there at Edwards Air Force Base. They were just starting the shuttle program, so the shuttle was landing there. NASA's big out there, and we were doing a lot of work for NASA anyways with instrumentation.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, no, I'm done with the government as well. So picked up roots, literally went to New York without a job, and hooked up with Honeywell. I had spent 35 years with Honeywell.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And so what did you do at Honeywell?
What I learned in the Navy set me up perfectly for what I did in Honeywell. I learned industrial automation. I worked in industrial automation for 35 years. If you think of that show, How It's Made, I've been into so many facilities watching all that stuff made. I know how it's made. Now, I didn't work on all that stuff. I just worked on automation type things. And my hat's off to industrial engineers. Those guys are like brilliant. They can take, here's where we're going to take the raw material, and this is what's going to end up, and everything in between. Those guys figure it out, So I only had a small piece of that. But if it was temperature, pressure, and vacuum control, that's what I did.
Wow. Now, did you ever go back? Did you ever go, not back, but did you ever go to college then and get your degree?
I did. I went and got an AS in electronics technology at Long Beach City College. Go Vikings. And then, life got in the way. And that's when we moved to New York.
Yeah.
And I went back to school after we moved from New York back to LA again after 7 years there. And I finished off my degree.
So something that someone listening to this might take from this part of the conversation is that the training that you got in the military really did, like you said, set you up for success. The degree part of it was just kind of like hey, I should probably do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You knew what you were doing. You had the ability. One, you had the skill set just because of who you are, but also the Navy really gave you that training.
Absolutely. I count myself so fortunate. Like I said, even from the very beginning, when they said, yeah, you're going to a ship that doesn't have the system. Great. My life is done.
Great.
but and it's just like we talked about earlier, you take that supposed hit and it's like, you turn that into something just like that. The Mobile in itself, we turned it into something, and learning automated propulsion. I knew the basics of industrial automation before I got with Honeywell. It was just like, just continuing on in the private sector. So they didn't have to teach me much. I had to learn their way of doing things and their equipment. But I started out on single loop controllers, controlling a big furnace, and then went on to, at the end of my career, as a technician anyways, working in refineries. And the only thing my degree got me was into management, which is what I wanted to do anyways, really. Right. I mean, I carried around a tool bag all my working life. And as you get older, it's like, kind of done with that too. So
time to train the younger generation.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So Honeywell moved you from New York back to Long Beach?
They didn't. I left.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I tried to transfer out there. They said they didn't have any position. This story is another story in itself. I count myself so blessed, and I see God working through all of this, because I tried to get a transfer, and they said, no, we don't have anything going on. So, check later. And it got to the point, I was a project manager at that time, and I was handling 3 projects. I was living in southern New York in Binghamton, and I was handling a project in Syracuse and Albany and Orangeburg, New York, which is just north of New York City. So I was making this big triangular loop, and it was like, I'm getting burned out. I can't do all this. And I'd had enough. My wife wanted to go back to LA or Long Beach. The kids were older, and, New York's fun, but there's really nothing to do.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, we're going. So fortunate, I'd saved up enough to go 3 months without a job if I had to, but I didn't want to. Picked up everything, sold a bunch of stuff, and threw it into the biggest U-Haul you can tow behind an Aerostar van, and we headed back west.
Oh, wow.
So I still kept in touch, trying to, get a job together before I got there, and checked with the Honeywell office in LA, and they said, well, we may have something for you, so keep in touch. So in Oklahoma City, they said, yeah, a guy just put in his retirement paperwork. We may have something going on for you. So I think it was either Tucumcari or Las Cruces, I can't remember, where we iced the deal and said, yep, we're good. Here's your compensation, and, you'll start on this date. So, and we're going to count your month off as just, time without pay. And you start up right where you left. you get a $10,000 pay increase because you're going from a small town in New York to LA.
Yeah.
So price differential there. So my pay took a jump, and that's where I got into refining and refineries and all that kind of stuff. Real big process control.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just kind of running this through my head because, I had a family too. In the thought of like packing up and going out and hoping something happens. It
was scary.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. It was scary. I had a knot in my stomach riding cross country. It really was, but God works things out, just like he did when I was in the Navy. It was like that set the course for what my life was going to be like, and met a great woman who's supported me the whole time, and great kids. So yeah.
Was she nervous too?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. She was nervous, but she has been my biggest supporter.
Yeah.
She said, you'll find something, we'll do fine. And, we'd stay with friends like the first month or so we were there. We have some great friends out there from before we left the first time. So yeah, they put us up and to be at our own place and all that. So we don't do it by ourselves.
Right. Well, and there's like that thread that runs through a lot of what we talked about too. And it's like everything that you do just brings you to the point where you're at today, right? Like if you changed any one part of that story, it would be a different ending.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I believe that. And believe me, my wife and I have sat back and talked about things that, what if this didn't happen? And, all the alternate routes you could have gone. And it's like, I'm really thankful it went the way it did in the long run.
Yeah. We don't get the benefit of knowing what would have happened, right?
Right.
We only get the benefit of seeing the outcome of what we've done.
Yeah.
And it's a collective we.
It is.
not just what you or I have done. So how long were you out in California then?
Total of 27 years, I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so you, is there anything you want to share about your time out there, or any stories from your 27 years in California?
Well, it was a fun time out there too. A lot of work. Worked with a ton of great people. People in refineries are a different breed, I think, because it's almost like the Navy. You work in a refinery and you're working for, let's say, Shell, and for whatever reason you're not progressing along the way you want to, you go work for Chevron. So I go to these different refineries and run across people that, hey, I remember you, yeah, I used to work for Shell. Yeah. Okay. And it's like, we're all together in this thing. Right. And yeah, I still have acquaintances that literally I've met out in the middle of an oil field out in North Dakota. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
So it's a small group.
Now, did you continue bike riding through all of this?
Oh yeah. I still do.
Okay.
Yeah. As much as I want to, but I'm retired now. So I got to change that I'm still trying to shift my focus that I can do this whenever I want to. So
it's hard. I've been retired for 2 years and I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
Like I wake up every morning still feeling like there's something I got to do.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's usually pretty early too.
Yeah. Well, I'm working through that.
Yeah. Well, let me know how that works out for you. So you're out there for 27 years, yeah. And then you retire, and then what happened?
Well, went to school and everything, got my degree, got into management, and started, managing the people I actually worked with, my peers. And that job kind of dried up too. Honeywell wanted to combine the North and South branches together. I had all of Southern California and Arizona, New Mexico, out that way. And so they wanted to merge the offices together. And they said, well, here's the deal. You're not going to be the manager of that area, but we got a different position that they just created. So at the time, I was handling all the contracts and renewals. I was handling the personnel and their training and, just doing everything. So they said, that's probably not efficient and we're not growing as well as we should. So we take the contracts portion of it and make a new position as a contract manager. So that's what I did. I went from a field service manager to a contract manager. So now my focus is just contracts.
Mm-hmm.
But I had Northern, Southern California, and my territory was from North Dakota down to Southern California and everything in between. So I had a huge territory and did a lot of travel and all that. At the time we were looking at, thinking about I'm going to retire. Probably this is 2015 or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking I want to retire after 35 years and I'll be 65 and ready to go. So did not want to retire in Southern California. So we were looking east, maybe Arizona someplace, whatever. In the meantime, my son, my youngest, he had moved to Michigan and gotten a job there. We had visited a couple times and had some extended stays, got to know some friends outside of his group we got some friends in Michigan, and people were really nice. Not a bad place. I grew up in New York, so that's only really a day's drive to get to New York to see my family. So we figured, well, what the heck, let's move to Michigan. So we did, 2017. And I was still working at the time. My boss said, I don't care where you live, as long as you can handle the territory, So that's what I did. I still had the same territory. Honeywell shifted gears, and they decided to move me to a territory more centric to where I lived. So I then took everything from Michigan down to Kentucky.
Okay.
And everything in between. So that's what I was doing, managing contracts and everything in that area. And that's when I retired January this year.
So Michigan was just sort of a what the heck, let's try it out.
Sure.
Kind of
Yeah. It's kind of a theme in my life. It's like, I'm kind of tired of what I'm doing. What the heck? Let's do this.
Yeah.
It's a major thing.
So now is your wife, is she a California girl then?
She is.
Oh,
yeah.
This is a big change.
Yeah. But our 7 years in New York kind of primed her for the winters. And honestly, in Brighton, we don't get it near what we got in Sherrill, New York. So we used to get dumped on horrendously. And for some reason, we get the cold, but we just don't get that much snow. So it's livable.
Yeah, definitely doable. I mean, I'm sure you still have friends out in California, in that area too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's got family, but her family wasn't as tight as mine. I mean, like I said, we all grew up on the same road. So,
right.
So her family's a little bit more extended. But yeah, we go back and visit and all that. And reminds us both why we moved to Michigan.
So the other thing I want to ask you too is that, so you're Italian. Is your wife Italian?
She's not. She's Portuguese.
Portuguese?
Yeah, Portuguese. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm just curious.
And her family, we did the whole ancestry thing.
Yeah.
And her family's from the Azores. I mean, that's pretty specific, So, okay.
That is really specific. Yeah. Usually it's like, there's a sprinkling here and a sprinkling there. So how was her family background as compared to yours? I'm asking this for a reason. Okay. So I grew up in a white middle-class family. We're Irish, English, my wife is 100% Greek. Like both sets of grandparents came from Greece. She's Greek. And it was a big culture shock for me because when you talk about cousins and aunts and uncles and family and all of that, her family lives all over the place, but man, when we get together, holy crap. And I wasn't used to that. So I was just curious.
It's loud, huh?
Oh, a little bit. Just a little tiny bit. And I do have friends that have, their families are from Italy and so on. So I see it in her family and I see it in my friend's family, but I never had it myself. And man, yeah, you think people are angry. They're not. They're just talking.
Right.
So I'm just curious, was it the same way for your wife?
Her family's different.
Mm-hmm.
They did a lot of things that it's like, we would never do that. But her family's tight too. I mean, when they get together, they always did like, let's sing all the songs from the 50s, and they'd all sing and everything else, and they're tight too, it's just that they did it differently, you know? Yeah, I guess that's the way I could describe it.
Okay.
Her mom's side of the family grew up in the Midwest out in South Dakota, and they came out to California during the Dust Bowl, like so many did. But they were French, I believe, and farmers, and moved out of that. And for some reason, a lot of the people in that particular town moved into the same area in Long Beach. And I guess her grandma and grandfather were from the same town and in South Dakota. Yeah.
Rest is history.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what about the kids? Like, what are they up to? Is your son still in Michigan?
Yeah. All my family's in Michigan. So
Oh.
my daughter followed us out and my oldest followed us out as well. So it's like, yeah, we're all here.
Y'all
I
just,
don't see too much of the oldest one anymore. He's out doing his own thing and, he just doesn't get together with us. So it's like, oh, okay. That was my, he was from a different marriage. So I ended up, step parent adopting my daughter. So, I met her mom when she was like 6 months old. So I'm the only dad she knows. So, yeah, my son came out, lived in Pinckney for a while, then came back to California, then went back here again, back to Brighton. He was a worship pastor out in the 242 church there and kind of moved up as the, what do they call it? Director of, I don't know, I think it was, I can't remember what his title was. Anyways, he was doing that for a long time. He oversaw all the worship teams and everything else like that. He just struck out on his own as him and his wife are doing a business kind of marketing and stuff like that. He was really great at that. My daughter, her and her family moved out a year after we came out, and they're living out here. He's son-in-law is a USC grad, and he's works in coding and stuff like that. I don't know exactly what it is. Works for Best Buy, not the stores, but Best Buy has a medical division, I guess, and he does all the coding and everything for their webs and all that stuff.
Okay, I had no idea.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah. So your family's here. You're here. What have you been doing since you retired?
So, trying to wrestle with the realization that my time is now my own. So, there were a ton of home projects, obviously, that were taken care of, and I work for Veterans Connected. So that was my main thing to keep me busy and involved in the community. We do a whole bunch of stuff, and being the secretary and treasurer, I handle all that kind of stuff and meet a lot of great people. Back in LA, people knew my wife and they didn't know me. I was Sean's husband. Her name is Mary Sean, but she went by Sean back then. So everybody knew my wife, not me. It's the other way around here. I know so many people and they know me and nobody knows my wife. She prefers it that way, I think.
Yeah. Yep. So you mentioned Veterans Connected, and we talked a little bit about it before we started recording. So tell me a little bit more about Veterans Connected and what you do there.
Yeah, so Veterans Connected started in 2019 as just a bunch of guys at a church that decided to do something for veterans. We knew a lot of people that were kind of falling through the cracks. They couldn't get their benefits because they were not in combat, or they got a less than satisfactory or less than honorable discharge, but they still put the uniform on. It just wasn't a great fit, So we decided, let's do something for these guys. And it started out just as cleaning people's yards, fixing their decks, whatever, real simple stuff. And then again, people saw what we were doing, and somebody said, hey, I got a car. A veteran that can use it? Sure. So we're fixing up cars and giving away to vets that needed transportation, and then people started throwing money at us, and we got to make this legal now.
We got to become a nonprofit, right?
Yeah, we got the 501c3 and all that stuff. And then the people of Michigan, this is what struck me and why I wanted to live here, because people are really friendly. I have never known such friendly and giving people as the people of Michigan. Really struck me as this is different. People call it, that Midwest kindness,
Yeah.
But it's true. It's true. We don't do what we do in Veterans Connected without the people that help us do it. They support us. They give us the funding. And we do a lot of great things because of them. We're just the conduit. We find the people, we know the people that need help, and we help them.
Yeah. And you've helped to the tune of a lot of money.
Yeah, I think it's at least $500,000 now, probably edging towards $750,000 since 2019, and not wholesale money. It's
Right.
services and things like that. We don't give veterans money. Period. We'll give them a hand up and pay a bill, or fix their car or something like that. But we're not handing out money. Okay, we'll buy food for them. Give them a gift card so they can go down to Walmart or Kroger or someplace and get food. But yeah, it's kind of our MO.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a lot of people who couldn't otherwise get help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For some reason or not, like I said, there's a lot of different people that just can't. And they go, our organization builds itself. We're the last stop. We really are, because we, in our, the way we work is we have people go to other organizations that get government funding or whatever, and you go to them first. And if they turn you down, we'll go to this other group that probably has way more funding than we do. So you got to go through a couple different hoops before you get to us. And when all else fails, we'll take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's happened more often than not. It really is kind of sad that other organizations have a lot of criteria you have to meet. With us, it's like, yeah, you can't get it anyplace else. We'll do it. And we've done it. Sometimes we respond within 6 hours. It's just got to get all the ducks in a row and make sure, okay, is their need true? They're not going to the casino gambling it all away. So if it's a bona fide need and we've proved it all out, ultimately we have to go show our people that support us. Yeah. I mean, these people are deserving, they need help. We just now picked up a guy that literally was living under a bridge,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody told us about him, and I went out and picked him up out in Lansing.
Yeah.
And at the travel area there. And so we're taking care of him, getting him a job, and, taking care of his needs.
Yeah. Giving people what they need to get further, but not just handing out cash to people.
Yep. Our whole idea is to get them up off of that one rung that they're hung up on, or up off the floor. We'll give you the hand up and give you a push forward. You got to take it from there, though, pal.
Right. Well, and I was at your gala event, which is kind of like your flagship event, right?
Yeah.
And I remember hearing some of the stories coming out of there. It was very impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And people, who otherwise would just still be suffering through trying to figure it out.
Right.
I think especially there was a family there that had some sort of car issue, and that got taken care of, and that was a game changer.
Yeah.
Can't go to work if you don't have a car.
Right. We had one guy. It was the most phenomenal Independence Day I've ever had, because we had one guy that needed wheels. Smart guy, had what it takes to succeed. He didn't have transportation. He has a family. He had to live close to Lowe's, I think it was, because that's the only work he could get to walking.
Mm-hmm.
So he'd walk during the winter. He'd walk. All he needed was wheels. Independence Day, I think it was 2020, during the height of the pandemic and all that stuff. We got a hold of a car, got it to him on July 4th, and followed up with this guy. He was able to get a job. It's like $75,000 a year, moved his family to some really decent housing, and he's on his way, to making a really great life for himself. All he needed was wheels.
Yeah.
He had what it took, willingness to work, make himself better, take care of his family, everything everybody does, he just needed wheels.
Well, and if you think about it too, like he's, you helped him. He's got a great job. He's an asset to that company.
Mm-hmm.
He's taking care of his family. He's a taxpayer now.
Yeah.
Like it's just this big, it's the circle of life, not to make light of it, but the circle of life right there.
Yeah.
That you're making better citizens by helping people out.
Yeah. There's so many people like that. Especially during the pandemic. Oh man, people were losing their jobs left and right, and they're going to lose their houses next. And it's like, well, okay, we'll step in, we can't keep going on the rolls forever, but we can make a house payment for you. Just kind of take that stressor off, because the big thing, our main mission is to stem the veteran suicide rate.
Yeah.
Government says it's 22, more like 44, because they don't count a lot of these people that end their lives in fashions that it's, oh, that was suicide. Yeah, you ran your car into a bridge abutment. Oops, that was a suicide.
Right. It wasn't an accident.
Right. So yeah, that's our big focus, is to take some of those stressors away so that you get the help you need. And now you can, oh man, okay, take a breath. Now what am I going to do? Let's help. Let's work you through this problem. It's temporary. Okay. This is not the final solution here. This is a temporary problem. We all have them. We all need people in our lives. I certainly did. I've stayed in people's houses when I didn't have housing for my family.
Right.
That was on me. I chose that, but still, we all had people in our lives that help out and get us through the tough times, or the times that we really do need a hand up.
Well, if someone wants to check out Vets Connected, where can they go?
So our website is veteransconnected.org. It's veterans with an S, connected, not connect. veteransconnected.org. We're on there. We're on Facebook. Yeah. So
okay.
I think we still have our Instagram going on. So,
all right. Well, I'd encourage people to check that out. So we've covered a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
In a really short hour, actually. Is there anything we haven't covered that you still want to talk about?
Well, I think we covered a lot. There was a couple of things that I think we glossed over that I can't remember now. Yeah, I think that's a lot of it anyways. Yeah. Just the way things work out. I mean, the one thing I want people to take away when they hear this is that, and we covered it, but it was like, you are in situations that you weren't thinking that this is the way it's going to turn out, because you had a plan. And it's always good to have a plan, but you got to be flexible too. So, so when people listen to this, I hope they realize that, be flexible, be willing to learn, be willing to, see things from a different perspective, maybe somebody else's perspective that, geez, I didn't really think about that. My wife when our kids were growing up, she used to pull me aside all the time, telling me I was too harsh with our kids, and you ought to see things from their perspective. She's always right. Yes. I'd always end up apologizing to my kids. I was wrong. So you have to have that ability to say, yeah, I messed up. I was wrong, and I want to learn from this, and it really, having great people along with that ride with you is, paramount, I think, because we help each other. We're in this life together, and, you never know when that one person that you just cross paths with is going to be a key person in your life.
Mm-hmm.
That's happened more than once as well. It's like, yeah, I knew this guy, and oh yeah, I've been a catalyst to other people, that, a good friend of mine looking for a job, and I just knew somebody, hey, check this guy out, and changed his life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was not my initial thing. I just want the guy to get a job,
Right.
So,
right. As well as changing their lives. There's people who've done that for you as well.
oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If it wasn't for that guy that was in the reserves that said, hey, you should go check out the shipyard. Okay. Yeah, I will. Been 8 years there.
Right. Right. And then that led to the next thing, which then led to the next thing, and so on. Yeah. It's all kind of a domino effect.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I look at my shipyard life. It's a phenomenal time. I loved it. Like I said, I got to sail on many different types of ships. Sailing on a couple of battleships was just an experience, especially one where, World War II ended here.
Yeah.
I was telling you earlier, I think when we were talking on the phone, I have a piece of the original deck from the Missouri, and it was an interesting time. Literally a museum. You get into some of the inner workings of those ships, and you open up a control cabinet, and there's somebody, Kilroy is here. Yeah, that was from 45. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Those old ships have, they are floating museums.
They're history. It's history.
It was all there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, I want to say thanks for talking with us on a Wednesday morning. Appreciate you coming all the way from Brighton.
Bill, thanks for having me. When Mike told me about this and he said, that was pretty interesting. I said, you know what? I really do need this for posterity's sake. People need to know the story, and it's great that we have you guys able to facilitate that.
Yeah, your story 107.
Okay.
So we got 107 folks now who've done their story.
Nice. Great.
All right. That's a wrap for this episode of the Veterans Archives podcast. We truly appreciate you taking the time to listen and honor the incredible stories of our nation's heroes. Don't forget, you can catch us every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Wreaths Across America Radio, or stream past episodes anytime on Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and as I've said before, any place you can find a podcast, you can find the Veterans Archives podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share our content on YouTube and Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and across all social media. Every share helps us reach more people and preserve more stories. The Veterans Archives podcast is a nonprofit initiative, and our mission is simple: to give veterans a voice and ensure their stories are never forgotten. This service is completely free for veterans because their sacrifices deserve to be recognized and remembered. You want to help? Follow us, spread the word, and if you know a veteran with a story to tell, send them our way. Visit us at veteransarchives.org to learn more about how you can get involved. Thanks again for tuning in, and most importantly, thank you to all the veterans and their families for their service and sacrifice. Until next time, take care, and we will see you on the next episode of the Veterans Archives podcast.